There I was, just finishing up my playthrough of the most recent Pokemon game, Legends ZA. At the end of this toe-tapping adventure, I found myself thinking about how much these games have changed over the years, but have still stayed true to the simple theme of catching and raising these little pocket creatures. So, after finishing the newest installment of the franchise and having had a blast playing Generation 1 for the first time, I was feeling a little nostalgic. I decided I was going to go back and replay the first game I ever played in the series, Pokemon Crystal. I'm optimistic it's going to be just as fun this time around as it was the first time, but a lot has changed in my life since then. Seriously, it's been a minute. Kanto is the region where the Pokemon adventure began for so many trainers today. But for me, it all started in Johto. After beating the champion in Kanto a few years ago, my mom and I moved around a bit. After this long, boring, non-Pokemon related stint, we finally found ourselves settling down for the time being in Newbark Town of the Johto region. Having left my Pokemon behind with Professor Oak after our move away from Pallet Town, it's time for a fresh start, and there's no better place to begin than at the local lab. But before I go inside, I notice there's a strange-looking person peering in through the side window. Okay. Now, to be fully transparent, as a kid, I honestly thought that the rival was a football player because his pixelated head is shaped like a helmet to me. I was never tipped off as to how odd it would be that a Japanese game with a setting inspired by a real Japanese region would have a prominent character who was an American football player. Even as the game went on and there wasn't a single football reference to be had, I never questioned why my rival walked around the region wearing a full-on helmet. And to this day, I will never unsee my rival this way. Though in recent years I discovered that the Gen 2 rival is, in fact, not wearing a helmet, and never did. It will become clear as to why I felt the need to include this little tidbit in a moment. Curious, I asked what he was up to, but he turned me right around and punted me out of his business. I didn't think much of it, so I walked into the lab and was greeted by Professor Elm. Now, Elm knows Professor Oak, and heard that I was familiar with Pokemon. So he asked if I could help him in his research by having me raise one of the 3 rare Pokemon that he caught. I didn't have to think hard on which one to go with, because Johto is the home to my favorite starter Pokemon, Cyndaquil. Together, we're tasked with checking out some findings for his acquaintance, Mr. Pokemon. With a name like that, he's got to be onto something good. So we head over his way and go through Cherry Grove City. A nice little town with friendly folks and a Pokemon Center that is sporting a brand new, state-of-the-art communication center. And I'm told it's almost finished. And oh boy, I cannot wait to try this piece of tech out. Hopefully they'll put the finishing touches on it soon. After a little conversing with the locals, we find Mr. Pokemon doing some research with none other than Professor Oak. After giving me a Pokemon egg to deliver to Elm, Oak pops over and we catch up on how everything's going back in Kanto. He gives me the newest version of his Pokedex, hoping this time around I'll put a little bit more effort into achieving his dream of cataloging all the Pokemon in the world. And before I can comment about how that's not really what I'm interested in doing, he says that he needs to head out to Goldenrod because he promised Gary he would guest star on a new podcast he's been working on. As soon as I leave, Elm calls in a panic, so I rush back to Newbark, but I'm stopped by that stranger who was creeping around Elm's lab earlier. He says that new Pokemon I got from Elm is wasted on a weakling like me, and challenges me to a battle. He throws out a Totodile, which looks very similar to the one I saw at Elm's lab. Cyndaquil starts the fight with Leer to drop Totodile's defense and takes a critical hit Scratch. After a second Leer and some more damage taken by Scratch, Cyndaquil eats a berry it was holding and restores its health. So that's new. I guess Pokemon can hold items now. With that boost in HP, all it takes is a few tackles and tanking a few scratches to come out with our first win in the Johto region. The angsty kid tells me his name and then promises he's going to be the world's best one day, before physically kicking me out of the way. I'm not a fan of his attitude, but he is surprisingly athletic for his age. I'll give him that. At the lab, it turns out that the Totodile we just fought was stolen, and the officer there asks me for any leads. I told him I just fought the kid who probably stole it, and gave him his name. Tom Brady, or T. Brady for short. After calming Professor Elm down, I show him the mysterious egg from Mr. Pokemon, and that gets him all spun up again. He suggests I take the Pokemon Gym Challenge, and given I was feeling up for another adventure, I took him up on that suggestion and went to go run it by my mom. She's less worried about me roaming around on my own this time around, but she does recommend sending home a portion of all my earnings from my Pokemon battling. I think she got spooked after hearing about how easily I got into the game corner in Kanto. After settling that, me and Cyndaquil roam around in the tall grass where we come across a Geodude and Spearow, and as much as I enjoyed my last Pokemon team, it feels appropriate to get a new team to mark this new adventure. So the second new member to our team ended up being a Phanpy we found on Route 46. While training these two up on our way to the first gym, Cyndaquil gets poisoned by the first Weedle we saw, and on the very first poison sting as well. Now it feels like a real Pokemon journey. Curing Cyndaquil of its poisoning with the preemptive antidote I was holding onto, we cruise to Violet City, home of the first gym and Sprout Tower. While training at the tower, we come across Tom Brady, who just beat an elder and told me how weak the poor old guy was before jetting out of there. I take on the elder myself, and after a quick battle, receive the HM for cut. Feeling ready for the first gym, we step in and challenge Falkner, a flying-type gym leader. He leads with Pidgey, and I go with Phanpy. After lowering its attack with Growl, both Pokemon just tackle each other until my little blue elephant is the last one standing. Falkner then sends out Pidgeotto, which for some reason looks really weird to me, only being level 9, and I send out Cyndaquil. I set up a smokescreen, which ended up being pointless because Pidgeotto didn't miss an attack, and all it would take is 2 Embers to knock it out. One was a critical hit, but given how little damage Gust was doing, I wasn't really that worried. We're awarded with the Zephyr badge, and to cap it off, Cyndaquil evolved into Quilava. We pick up a mysterious egg from Elm's assistant at the Pokemon Center, and make our way down Route 32 to the next gym in Azalea Town. On our way, we have our first blackout of the run, as it turns out this team doesn't handle water types well, or being confused. And to add insult to injury, my mom calls me shortly after to tell me that she used some of the money she's been saving for me to buy stuff that I didn't ask for. Great. Thanks, Mom. It was then that the most putrid, disgusting, and deplorable thing happened. A disgrace of a human being offered me a, and I quote, tasty and nutritious Slowpoke tail for $1 million. The monetary value aside, I don't know what kind of sick freak you have to be to sell a severed Slowpoke tail. I remove myself from the situation before I do an unchristian thing and send this sleaze to meet his maker earlier than anticipated. After blowing off some steam in Union Cave, I make it to Azalea Town, which I heard is a haven for Slowpoke. But I notice there isn't any Slowpoke around, and the Slowpoke well is closed for some reason. After talking to a local named Kurt, I find out there is a group of criminals down in Slowpoke well cutting off Slowpoke tails and selling them for profit. And that group claims to be Team Rocket. I thought I'd seen the last of them in Kanto, where I beat their boss Giovanni and he disbanded the group. Just as fired up as I am, Kurt joins me as we bust our way into Slowpoke well, where I see the most disturbing sight of my young life. The place is chock full of Slowpoke with their tails cut off, like some kind of nightmare. I discover a stolen Slowpoke holding a letter. Hey, there's some kid over here. What do you want, huh? Kid, did you hear me? Or are you just too scared to move? If you keep nosing around down here, you won't get any mercy from me. Hey, are you even listening? After dealing with that little problem and making sure all the Slowpoke were alright, I'm confronted by a Slowpoke that hasn't lost its tail. Turns out this little guy stood up to Team Rocket and was defending his friends the best he could. We immediately bond and he joins the team. Now I know I said I was going to have a new team for this run, but I can make an exception for the best Pokemon ever. Our mysterious egg hatches while climbing out of Slowpoke well and turns out to be a Togepi, who will play virtually no role in the rest of this story. With the Slowpoke crisis averted, we make our way to the second gym leader, Bugsy, the bug-type gym leader. Our battle gets off to a slow start with Metapod against Slowpoke. Metapod keeps lowering my speed with String Shot and boosting its defense with Harden, while Slowpoke raises its attack and defense with Curse until it's physically unable to be any stronger. Then Slowpoke makes quick work of Metapod with a Tackle. It wanted to stay in to take on Scyther, but after one Fury Cutter, I made the decision to swap into Quilava and go for a couple Embers to finish off Scyther, who was just getting in some pretty good damage by stacking Fury Cutters. Lastly was Kakuna, who tried to poison Quilava with Poison Sting to throw us off our game, but all it takes is one more Ember to secure us the Hive Badge. On our way to Ilex Forest, we're stopped by Tom Brady, who refuses to believe we beat Team Rocket, so he wants a battle to prove it. He leads with Ghastly, who quickly puts Quilava to sleep and lands a lick. Quilava wakes up next turn and lands a couple Embers to feint it. Next out is Croconaw, which is a much scarier Pokemon because my team is still not great against water types. I land a Smokescreen to drop its accuracy, and after a Water Gun puts Quilava on low health, I swap in Bellsprout and then Togepi to tank a few hits so I can restore Quilava's HP. With that, I get it back in there to land another Smokescreen and Leer in hopes of gaining an edge. Finally, we start to attack with a Tackle and then an Ember, which luckily burns Croconaw and chips away at its health every turn. With that advantage, I swap in Slowpoke to set up curses and tank attacks from Croconaw until it succumbs to the burn damage. Last out is Zubat, who almost drops Slowpoke, so I swap in for Phanpy, who promptly gets confused and does almost no damage. So I heal up Quilava a bit and then send him back in to finish off the fight with an Ember. Tom Brady then warns me to stay out of his way and declares he's going to become strong and wipe out the weak. Man, this kid is really angry. After a quick trip through Ilex Forest, we have a fateful encounter with a camper named Todd. He's an excitable kid sporting a pretty strong Psyduck who gives Phanpy some trouble, so I have to swap into Quilava to end the fight. Afterwards, Todd tells me of some great deals that the Goldenrod department store sometimes has, and that he follows all the happenings there and will keep me in the loop. He gives me his phone number, and that's the story of how I met my new friend Todd. I'm also given an odd egg from the daycare gentleman, so I guess I'm gonna hatch this one too. I'm taking in all the lights and business of Goldenrod City when I stumble across a few useful places, like a bike shop where I'm given a bike in return for a little bit of free advertising, and a train station that will apparently be usable at some point in the future. I also find the game corner, but then my mom's words echoed out to me. Scared straight, I shuffle my way over to the next gym challenge at the Goldenrod City Gym. The gym leader here is Whitney, who, rumor around town has it, is an incredibly strong normal-type gym leader. She leads with Clefairy, who takes a critical hit Ember from Quilava and then hits a weak double slap attack. It then uses Dragon Breath, courtesy of Metronome, after taking another Ember and is finished off with a quick attack. Easy enough. But then her second and final Pokemon comes out, and it's a heavy hitter. Miltank starts off by beginning its dreaded rollout attack, and Quilava uses Smokescreen to hopefully mess up its cadence and ruin rollout's stack damage. This turns out to be in vain as rollout hits next turn to drop Quilava. Phanpy comes in to tank a rollout and hit with its newly taught Mudslap to do a little damage, but mostly to drop accuracy again. Phanpy barely hangs on after another rollout, which is not effective, but you could have fooled me because this cow is hitting like a truck now. I desperately go for another Mudslap, and finally Miltank misses, which allows Phanpy to go for another Mudslap just to make sure Miltank's accuracy is dodgy. Miltank misses a stomp, and Phanpy gets off a flail before feinting to the next stomp. Slowpoke comes in and gets a little damage with Water Gun, and tries to set up Curse to hopefully do a bit more damage, but after seeing what Tackle does, I realize that's probably not going to be the way to win this battle. Miltank also goes for Milk Drink, which I forgot it has, and now its health is restored, so that's bad. Slowpoke gets a bit more damage in before I realize my best course of action is to revive Quilava and get it back in there to burn Miltank and chip away at its health that way every turn. Slowpoke goes down and Quilava comes back in only to get hit by Attract because, of course, it has Attract. And why is the third gym leader this annoying to deal with? It goes for another Milk Drink for good measure, and Quilava struggles through its infatuation with the pink dairy cow to land a couple hits, but ultimately gets feinted a second time. Which leaves me with my moral support squad, Bellsprout and Togepi. And that goes about the way you would expect, and I black out for a second time on my journey. Now, I never let my inability to stay conscious stop me in Kanto, and I'm certainly not going to let it stop me here. So with the team fully healed and a game plan, we stroll back into the gym and give it another go. Just like in the first fight, I lead with Quilava against her Clefairy, and feint it after landing a couple embers and a quick attack. But now comes the hard part. I switch into Togepi to maybe get a growl off and lower its attack, but that ends about as quick as it started. This time around, I plan to really lean into lowering Miltank's accuracy as low as it can go, so I send in Phanpy, who I know can take a few hits and won't be affected by Attract. Miltank starts setting up Rollout, but after a couple accuracy drops thanks to Mud Slap, it finally misses. And we get a couple more Mud Slaps in thanks to a missed Stomp. Finally, Miltank gets a Stomp in, which leaves Phanpy on 7 HP before it lands its 5th Mud Slap. I'm hoping for a miss, so Phanpy can land a powerful Flail due to its low HP, but even though we get that miss, Flail really doesn't do anything. So we shoot for one last Mud Slap and get Miltank's accuracy all the way down. Phanpy then feints to Stomp, but it did a perfect job setting us up for victory. Quilava's up next, and Attract misses, which leaves the door wide open to an Ember which almost knocks out Miltank, but it's able to use a Milk Drink and restore its health. It continues to restore its health while Quilava desperately tries to burn it. Obviously, Miltank doesn't handle rejection well, because after the first Attract missed, it thankfully never went for it again. We continue to spam Ember through Miltank's Milk Drinks, Stomps, and missed moves until finally we get Miltank on low enough health and go for a quick attack to finish off the Bovine Beast. Whitney immediately bursts into tears and doesn't even give me a gym badge. Feeling scammed after such a hard-fought battle, we go up to Route 36 and come across a tree that's blocking our path. This wiggly guy's carefree attitude cheers me right up, and we head back to Goldenrod to retrieve the squirt bottle, which I'm told will help me with this situation. I return to the gym on my way, and Whitney finished crying long enough to give me the plain badge, so that's taken care of. With the squirt bottle in hand, we travel through the national park, taking in the views, and we hear that there's a popular bug catching contest held here, but it's not held today, so we'll have to come back for that some other time. We do get the Quick Claw item, however, and I give it to Slowpoke. Okay, now hear me out. I have a very good reason for giving a Slowpoke a Quick Claw. Well, I have a reason for giving a Slowpoke a Quick Claw. When I was a kid, I was fascinated with Slowbro, but I couldn't deny that the biggest thing it had going against it in battle was its speed. Its lethargic nature adds to its charm, but in battle it kind of held it back. I mean, it tanks hits really well and can dish them out just as good, but always going second in battle felt like if I could just find a way for it to pick up the pace, then Slowbro could reach an even greater height. That's when the dream of Fastbro came to be. But as a kid, I had no knowledge of improving this line's speed, so it just stayed a childish dream. Until now, where I will accomplish my childhood goal of possessing the fastest Slowbro ever seen by utilizing all the means available to me to improve Slowbro's speed stat. Or at least trying to. But for now, we continue our journey. And after pouring a few drops of water on a wiggly tree, we discover it isn't a tree at all, but a Pokemon called Sudowoodo. I like its energy, so I catch it and add it to the team. While on our way to the next town, our odd egg hatches into Magby, which is a really cool baby Pokemon. But because I already have a fire Pokemon on the team, Magby is unfortunately going to be of no use here. Sorry, bud. Maybe next time. We make it to Ecruteak City and explore an old burned tower where the gym leader is helping a man named Eusine with his pursuit of the legendary Pokemon Suicune. To my surprise, while helping these two, I stumble upon Tom Brady, who is also looking for a strong legendary Pokemon, but can't find any, so he blames me and battles me on the spot. Tom leads with Haunter against my Phanpy, and Haunter sacrifices some health to put a curse on my elephant, while it gets off a Mud Slap for some good damage. Phanpy takes some chip damage from the curse and a lick before fainting Haunter with another Mud Slap. I then switch into Slowpoke to take on his Croconaw. Having only added the rock-type Sudowoodo to the team, we aren't going to fare much better in this fight, especially because its bite move is super effective against Slowpoke, the only viable member of the team who isn't weak to water. Slowpoke lands a weak tackle after almost getting one-shotted by Bite, so I switch into Magby to take one for the team and get a clean switch into Quilava, which lands a quick attack and takes a water gun in return. It takes it pretty well, so I keep it in to land another couple quick attacks and get some great damage in on Croconaw. It feints to water gun, but then Sudowoodo gets in and, after taking a leer, feints Croconaw with a rock throw. Phanpy returns to land a couple Mud Slaps and take out Tom's Magnemite, And finally it's down to Sudowoodo, who drops Zubat with a single rock throw. The shocks from our battle open up a hole in the ground, and me and my team fall through. Tom Brady isn't any help at all, and we find ourselves underneath the burned tower and face to face with the 3 legendary beasts, Suicune, Entei, and Raikou, who immediately all scatter. A little confused about this sequence of events, we decide to take a look around Ecruteak and discover a theater run by a group of kimono-wearing trainers who all have unique evolutions as their partner Pokemon. After defeating them, I'm awarded the HM for Surf, and we make our way to the gym for our 4th gym battle. The leader here is Morty, a ghost-type gym leader who leads with a Ghastly. Phanpy opens up with a Mud Slap after it takes a Curse to knock it out quick. I then swap out Phanpy to avoid Curse damage and send in Slowpoke to face Haunter. Haunter goes for a Curse of its own, but then takes a Surf to leave it on only a bit of HP. Then a Quick Claw Surf finishes it off. Gengar is up next, and I swap back to Phanpy. Hypnosis misses, and Phanpy's Mud Slap lands. Hypnosis lands next turn, however, and sets up Gengar to land a powerful Dream Eater. I opt to switch into Quilava, hoping that Gengar will go for another Dream Eater, and we get a free swap-in. Quilava lands a critical hit Ember, and then a few more, as Gengar misses multiple times and fails to put Quilava to sleep. Morty's last Pokemon is Haunter, who takes a Quick Claw Surf and lands a Nightshade. Slowpoke gets some damage in with Confusion as Haunter goes for Spite. One more Confusion finishes off Haunter, and the Fog Badge is ours. Next up is our gym battle in Cyanwood. But first, we run into Tom Brady in Olivine City, who says the gym leader is away taking care of a sick Pokemon in the lighthouse, and that weak Pokemon are useless and blah blah blah. He then insults me and goes on his way, so I decide I want to help the weak Pokemon because I'm not awful. So I tell Jasmine, the Olivine gym leader, that I'll pick up some medicine for the lighthouse Ampharos in Cyanwood, because I'm heading there anyway for the gym challenge. Once in Cyanwood, I pick up the medicine and cross paths with Suicune, who is just chilling in the cove here. It bolts off, and Yucine is hot on its tail. From here, it's off to the gym, where the leader Chuck starts off our interaction by throwing a boulder as big as him over a statue. And as fun as it would be to throw boulders around, I tell him that I would rather have a Pokemon battle. So we begin, and it's Primeape against Slowpoke. Primeape misses a Leer and gets hit with a super effective Confusion that leaves it confused. After hitting itself in Confusion, Slowpoke almost knocks it out with another Confusion. Slowpoke takes a Fury Swipes really well and finishes off Primeape with, get this, Confusion. Chuck only has 2 Pokemon for some reason, so his ace Poliwrath is up next. And things quickly get out of control. Slowpoke's Confusion did good damage, and Poliwrath answered back with a Surf that will knock it out in about 3 shots. It then goes for Hypnosis, and I use a Mint Berry to wake it up. I then restore Slowpoke's health with a Super Potion, because it'll be pivotal keeping it around thanks to my team's opposition to water. But I'm really only healing away the previous damage Poliwrath is doing every time, because Surf is doing quite a bit. Slowpoke is able to get a little bit more damage off with Confusion, and I'm hoping for a Quick Claw attack, but don't get it, and Slowpoke faints. That's alright. Poliwrath is less than half health, and I still have a full team. So we got this. Alright. Okay. Alright. Never mind, we're gonna revive Slowpoke and get it back in here. Round 2 between these water types is on, and Slowpoke gets that Quick Claw Confusion right off the bat. It takes a little damage to Surf, but in the next turn Poliwrath misses a Hypnosis and Confusion gets the knockout, so we get the Storm Badge. Chuck's wife then gives us the HM for Fly outside the gym, but because we don't have any flying types on the team, or in my PC, we have to surf all the way back to Olivine. The long surf back gave me time to contemplate my team's glaring weakness to water that just wasn't being covered by having a water type of our own. So once we get to Olivine, we wet a line and reel in the newest member of our team, Chinchou, the water and electric type that should make our water type troubles a thing of the past. Upon returning to the lighthouse, we give Ampharos the medicine and it does the trick, healing it right up. Relieved, Jasmine then returns to the gym and we have our battle. I go with Phanpy to battle her Magnemite. A Mud Slap gets in some good damage while also dropping its accuracy, which leads to a couple missed Supersonics. One more Mud Slap gets the job done and finishes off Magnemite. Next in is another Magnemite, but the outcome is the same. Lastly is Steelix, which is an awesome looking Pokemon that I would have loved to put on the team. But unfortunately, it's a trait evolution, and the finishing touches haven't yet been put on the Communication Center. Any day now, I'm sure. Anywho, we stick to the tried and true tactic of slapping our opponents with mud for that accuracy drop. However, all it takes is one Iron Tail to drop Phanpy. Quilava is up next, and a super effective Ember does far less than I would have hoped. A Rock Throw almost one-shots us, and Quilava gets off one more Ember before presumably fainting that turn, but Steelix misses a Rock Throw. This provides an opportunity to finish it off with Ember, except Jasmine heals up fully with a Hyper Potion. Focusing again on accuracy, because Steelix is doing massive damage every hit, Quilava goes for a Smokescreen, which causes Steelix to miss its next Rock Throw. And after one more Ember, it faints to the next Rock Throw. Chinchou is now in to prove what it can do, and a couple of surfs later it cements itself as a valuable member of this squad. After this battle, we receive the Mineral Badge, and Phanpy evolves into Donphan. We continue our exploration of the region, and while in the ruins of Alph, we add Natu to the team, who immediately levels up and evolves into Xatu. After spending some time training and leveling up, Chinchou also evolves into Lantern, and it's time to head to Mahogany Town to inspect some rumors we've heard about Pokemon going berserk at the Lake of Rage. The first shop we go into has a guy there that tries to sell me another Slowpoke tail, so that's disgusting. We then decide to head straight to the Lake of Rage and get scammed by some Team Rocket members, as if I didn't dislike them enough. We come across a trainer who presumably also got scammed, and to make matters worse, he tells me that a guy named Tom Brady made fun of his Pokemon. And I just really hope this Tom Brady fella finds an outlet for all this angst he's holding on to. At the Lake of Rage, we don't run into Tom, which would have made sense, but instead into a shiny red Gyarados. I would love to catch a shiny Pokemon, but because this is a static encounter, it kind of loses its luster for me, so we feint it and resolve the rampaging issue. At the edge of the lake, I run into Lance, who I haven't seen since way back in Kanto. But our reunion isn't a pleasant one, as he's investigating the rampage reports here at the lake, and asks if I can help solve the issue. I figure 2 elite trainers is better than 1, and we join forces. I tip him off to that lowlife in Mahogany Town, so we barge into the place, and Lance straight up hyper beams a dude into the wall. Now that is the intensity I'm looking for when dealing with Slowpoke herding crooks. Lance then hurls the other loser aside and discovers a secret staircase which reveals a secret rocket hideout. Turns out we need 2 passcodes to unlock the door to the boss's room. I take down an exec and get the first code. You make me sick. And then get the second code from another guy. Before unlocking the door to the boss's room, I'm stopped by Tom Brady, who asks about Lance and who he is. Apparently, Lance just smoked him in battle and then told him he doesn't love his Pokemon enough, and that really cut deep. Tom's furious he would lose to someone who treats Pokemon with kindness. I mean, there's just no way that love and trust play a role in bringing the best out of your friends, right? Before I can tell him that that's exactly what it does, he boots me back a few steps and just leaves. Wishing him well with whatever he's dealing with, we turn our attention to a Rocket exec who reveals that Giovanni actually isn't the one behind this, and it's just some Rocket members who stuck around after he left and kept things going in preparation for his eventual return. I try to tell them that Giovanni turned over a new leaf years ago and has no interest in turning back to a life of crime, but he refused to believe me and challenges me to a battle. With the help of Quilava and Slowpoke, we make quick work of the exec and get the password to unlock the master door which leads to the generator room. A signal has been going out from here that forces Magikarp to evolve and rampage in the Lake of Rage. As I unlock the door, the intern boss of Team Rocket shows up, but before her and her goon can try to beat me with numbers, Lance swoops in and launches a sneak attack, knocking her back and making it a fair fight. The fight's a pretty easy one, and Slowpoke, who's been training his tail in particular in honor of his tailless companions back in Azalea Town, finishes off the exec's final Pokemon with a newly learned Iron Tail. The machine we need to shut down next is powered by Electrode, and Lance says that the only way to power it down is to knock them all out. So we go with that strategy, and it gets the machine offline. Lance thanks me for the help and wishes me well on my journey before heading out. With Team Rocket in check for the moment, we continue our gym challenge by facing the Ice Gym Leader Price. He starts with Seal, who falls to 2 Sparks from Lantern. Paloswine is out next and forces me into Slowpoke, who starts off the battle with a Surf. After tanking a Fury attack, it lands an Iron Tail to finish off the job. Last out is Dewgone, and Lantern returns to make quick work of it with a couple sparks. While leaving the gym, we get a call from Elm telling us that something weird is going on at the radio tower in Goldenrod City. We tell him we'll check it out and head on our way. Just outside of town, we run into our friend Todd, who really wants another battle. Unfortunately, he's been spending more time shopping than training, and that comes back to bite him in this rematch. He tells me he'll keep an eye out for those great sales at the department store, which is a good thing because my mom is apparently trying to bankrupt me. We then find the Goldenrod radio tower under a Team Rocket takeover, not too dissimilar from the Silphco incident a few years ago. To get to where we need to go inside the tower, we first have to go into the underground tunnels and retrieve a card key from the kidnapped radio tower director who's being held hostage there. Tom Brady tails me down underground and says he'll be the one to take down Team Rocket. He challenges me to a battle to decide which one of us is the more suited for the job, and we both send out our flying-type Mons for some aerial combat. Xatu lands a peck and then takes enough damage from Bite and a Confusion to make me swap into Slowpoke, who speeds into battle and lands the first hit with Confusion. But a Leech Life followed by Bite feints Slowpoke. Sudowoodo steps in to take a bite and then buries Golbat in a Rock Slide. Feraligatr comes in and it's time to bring out my water counter Lantern. It takes a bite well and damages back with Spark, which also paralyzes. Thanks to the reduced speed of paralysis, Lantern goes first and finishes the fight with another Spark. With our weakness to water types officially behind us, Quilava comes in to one-shot Magnemite with a Flame Wheel. Donphan slaps Haunter with Mud after it shoves a nail into its own face, and Sudowoodo kicks Sneasel hard enough to finish it off in one shot. Now Tom Brady is left going through a crisis. He thinks he's assembled the strongest team, and yet he lost again. He wonders if love and trust are really the things he's missing to take his game to the next level. He tells me this isn't it for him, and that he won't stop pushing forward to become the greatest. Honestly, he's a driven kid, and I could see him achieving great things, but I just don't think it's in Pokemon battling. He just doesn't really have a knack for it. Maybe he could look into something else like music, or sports. I don't know. Anywho, I have a Team Rocket to dismantle again. We find the director, get the keycard, and dash back to the tower where we beat up some more Rocket grunts, evolve Quilava into Typhlosion, and take on both the Rocket bigwigs who reveal that their master plan is to use the radio station to broadcast their comeback to the world in a desperate attempt to get Giovanni to come back and restore Team Rocket to its former glory. It's actually just really sad. I tell them that Giovanni isn't coming back, and if a 10-year-old is able to single-handedly end your organization, then it probably wasn't meant to be. Distraught, the Rocket exec decides to disband the remaining Team Rocket members and take off into the sunset. As long as they don't hurt any more Slowpoke, they're really not much of a threat, so I let them go. I figure the physical beating they receive from Lance will serve as their punishment. With Team Rocket over for good this time, we slide over to Blackthorn City and take on the gym leader Claire. She's a Dragon-type user and claims to be on par with the Elite Four, so this will be a good final gym test for us. She begins with Dragonair and I go with Sudowoodo. It's a rough start with Dragonair landing 2 Surfs and Sudowoodo missing a Rock Slide. Next out is Xatu, who sets up a Future Sight before getting paralyzed by Thunder Wave. Dragonair goes back to Surf, so Xatu takes to the air to avoid the Surf, only to be paralyzed and not hit the Fly attack. Luckily there was the Future Sight damage, so I guess it's not all bad. One more paralyzed Fly, and I decide it's time for a full restore. Back in the fight, Xatu takes a Surf and dodges a Thunder Wave with Fly. Luckily Dragonair doesn't go for another Thunder Wave, and one more Fly feints it. Another Dragonair comes out and goes for a super effective Thunderbolt, feinting Xatu, but not before it can set up another Future Sight. Donphan's up next. Dragon Breath does pretty good damage, about the same as Strength, so we go for a Mud Slap next to lower its accuracy. It then takes the Future Sight attack, and I'm hoping for a miss from Dragonair so I can feint it with the next attack, but Dragon Breath lands and feints Donphan instead. I take a gamble with Slowpoke, feeling the odds are pretty decent that either we get a Quick Claw activation or a Dragonair miss due to its accuracy drop. But I stink at gambling and Slowpoke pays the price. Reeling a bit, Lantern comes in to stop the bleeding and feint Dragonair with a Waterfall. I'm not surprised when Claire's third Pokemon is another Dragonair. I mean, she's been having pretty good success with it so far, so why change it up? Unfortunately for her, Lantern confuses her Dragon and it hits itself in confusion. We keep it confused and eventually paralyze it. With the dirty double of Paralysis and Confusion, Dragonair doesn't stand a chance. Next up is Kingdra, the only other dragon type in this generation besides the Dratini line. Given how well Confusion and Paralysis worked for us in the last fight, we go right back to it with a Confuse Ray followed by a Confusion hit. Lanturn lands a Spark, but then takes a Hyper Beam, and that pretty much does it for the Electric Fish, for now. I spend Kingdra's recharge turn and another to revive and heal Lanturn. Typhlosion gets off a smoke screen and a quick attack before getting dropped by Surf. Lanturn is back again, and I elect to start with a Thunder Wave and get the Paralysis on early. Next comes the Confuse Ray, which results in a first turn Confusion hit and has really been coming in clutch this battle. From this point on, Lanturn spams Sparks, and for some reason Kingdra doesn't go for another Hyper Beam even though it was so effective the first time, and Lanturn is able to fight through all the smoke screens it went for instead, not missing a single spark. After whittling away at its health, we feint Kingdra and earn the Gym Badge. Or at least that's what I'd like to say if we didn't have yet another Johto gym leader pout and refuse to give me my hard-earned badge. Instead, I get sent out to the Dragon's Den out back to prove myself worthy. Inside the Dragon's Den, Slowpoke evolves into Slowbro, and being in possession of such a wonderful Pokemon is clear enough evidence of my worthiness for the Master of the Den, and he makes Claire give me the badge I earned. With the last Johto badge in hand, it's down to New Bark Town we go, on our way to the Elite Four. Along the way, we get into a battle with a wild Skarmory. Now, if for some reason I was on a game show, and the million-dollar question was, what generation was Skarmory introduced into the Pokemon video game series? I would have, with 100% confidence, said Generation 3. And if I wasn't staring at its Gen 2 sprite right in front of me, I wouldn't have believed you when you said I was wrong. But here it is. And now, I don't even know what I don't know. Hoping there's no quiz portion to my Elite Four challenge, we surf from New Bark Town and set foot in Kanto on our way to Victory Road. We cross paths with a trainer who was on the receiving end of a beatdown courtesy of Tom Brady, who she says had a Game 7 look in his eye and had to win at any cost. I reassure her he's not that bad of a guy, just really competitive. And with that, it's time to take on Victory Road, but it's super short and has no trainers, unlike when I traveled through during my Kanto adventures. Luckily, this boring cave jaunt is capped off with a battle from none other than Tom Brady himself. He says how much weaker I am than him, and that he now has his strongest team with only the best Pokemon. And I just can't help but think to myself, he is really trying to make this Pokemon thing work. I tell him I don't really think battling's for him, but he won't take no for an answer and challenges me. I lead with Donphan, who feints Sneasel with a couple rollouts. Tom Brady's Ace for Alligator's up next, so I swap in for my water counter Lanturn, and Lanturn uses Confuse Ray and then Spark. After a Scary Face lowers Lanturn's speed, it gets outsped, but that doesn't make much of a difference as For Alligator gets hit with a Confusion and one more Spark to take it out. Sudowoodo comes out to take on Magneton and gets paralyzed from a Thunder Shock. It's still able to get off a low kick for some damage, however. Sudowoodo takes some more Thunder Shock damage, but is able to land a Rock Smash through the paralysis. It then hangs on for one more attack and lands another low kick to get the knockout. Next out for Tom is Haunter, and I send in Donphan, who lands its first Mud Slap easily enough, but then struggles to get the finisher in after being hit by a Confuse Ray. After hitting itself in confusion a couple times, it finally breaks through and gets the last Mud Slap in. Slowbro comes in next to Icy Wind Golbat with a Quick Claw, slowing it down while dealing some pretty good damage. Slowbro then gets hit by a Confuse Ray, which does what it needs to do and prevents a quick knockout. Similar to how Tom Brady is confused about what path to take in his life right now, his Pokemon seem only to be finding success when they're using Confuse Ray. Golbat tries to beat Slowbro with Bite and Leech Life, but it just can't get the job done, and Slowbro goes for a Confusion of its own to drop it. Kadabra comes out to desperately try and turn things around, but Xatu lands a Nightshade and a Fly to sweep Tom Brady and put to rest any more dreams of becoming a Pokemon master. He concedes and tells me he's starting to finally see the importance of trusting his team and encourages me to keep going, because he's not going to stop training to be the best. If he can hone that drive and passion by learning to be a team player, I really wonder how far this Tom Brady kid could go one day. And now it's time for our Elite Four challenge. It's been a few years since I was last in this building and some things have changed. This time around, my team is Typhlosion, Slowbro, Donphan, Sudowoodo, Xatu, and Lantern. My team's not the only thing that's different, because the Elite Four now has some new members. First up is Will, a Psychic-type trainer. He leads with a Xatu of his own. I start with Typhlosion, which was a good call thanks to its new coverage move in Thunder Punch that I taught it before going in to help with any potential water types. After fighting through a confusion, another Thunder Punch feints Xatu. Next out is Slowbro because apparently Will heard about how strong my team was and copy and pasted it. I switched to Lantern and landed a Confuse Ray to hopefully get some chip damage in on the bulky boy. It hits itself in confusion and then takes a spark. It's then able to break through the confusion and set up an Amnesia, which allows it to just live another spark and get a Psychic off. Luckily, it doesn't do too much damage and another spark feints it. Next is Will's first Pokemon to not be ripped from my team. But it also gets dropped turn 1 from a Flame Wheel courtesy of Typhlosion. Out comes Xatu number 2, and Typhlosion makes quick work of it with a critical hitting Thunder Punch. Last up is Jinx, so I keep in Typhlosion to land some Flame Wheels and finish the battle in pretty good shape. I thought teaching Thunder Punch to Typhlosion was going to be able to help against water types, but it did a surprisingly good job against this matchup as well. Next up is Koga, who has been elevated from Gym Leader to Elite Four member now. I remember his team is Poison type, so I'm going to use that knowledge to help me out in this battle. I'm not sure who he's going to lead with, so I send in Typhlosion and keep my ground type Donphan in the back, because I think it's going to be the most valuable player in this one. This worked out great because Koga sent out Ariados and it just lived on a couple HP to a Flame Wheel. It then baton passes over to Forretress, who's 4 times weak to Flame Wheel, so that was an interesting choice on Koga's part. Or maybe it was on Ariados' part, because I don't really know how baton pass works given that I've never really used it before. So maybe you don't get to choose which Pokemon you pass into and it's just random. But either way, Forretress never stood a chance. Next up is Koga's first Pokemon not weak to fire, so I switch into Donphan to retain the super effective advantage. 1 Earthquake is all it takes to feint Muck, and I switch back into Typhlosion to finish off Ariados with a quick attack. We stay in for Crobat, and although it sets up a double team, Typhlosion lands its first Thunder Punch to put it on half health. Koga then goes for a full restore, and Typhlosion misses its second Thunder Punch, so we're back to square one. After getting off a wing attack, Typhlosion then gets back in its groove and lands a Thunder Punch, which, although it seems to do a lot less damage this time around for some reason, it does paralyze Crobat, so now we got speed on our side. Really feeling the need for speed, Typhlosion lands a critical hit quick attack, but takes a wing attack in return. Crobat doubles up on wing attack after a miss from Thunder Punch and puts Typhlosion on a low amount of health. But it comes through in the end and lands his Thunder Punch to finish off Crobat. Last up is Venomoth, so I switch into Xatu and set up a future sight attack. After a miss from Supersonic, Xatu is clear to take to the skies. Turns out the future sight wasn't necessary because a fly dropped Venomoth in one shot, giving us the win. To my surprise, Bruno has still retained his position as part of the Elite Four and is my next opponent. I completely spaced that he had a bunch of rock types as well as fighting types last time until I already began the battle. I thought this could be a mistake because I led with Xatu, but things started out in my favor because Bruno switched his team up and led with a new fighting type Pokemon Hitmontop. Xatu sets up a future sight and takes a super effective pursuit, but it doesn't do too much, probably because Hitmontop doesn't have a very good special attack. Next turn, Xatu flies up and dodges an attack, but then fails to land its attack because Hitmontop has Detect. Future Sight lands to get off some damage, but not as much as I would have liked. Thankfully, I kept the fierce flying type move Peck on Xatu and went for it the next turn, and it dished out some pretty good damage. Hitmontop desperately goes for a quick attack to get some damage in before fainting to an unmatched Peck. Next up is Onix, and I for one am glad he kept this rock type on his team. I would feel odd at this point if he didn't have that seemingly nothing to do with his theme team Pokemon at his side. And it gives me a freebie because I just send in Lantern to one-shot it with Waterfall. Out comes Hitmonlee, so Xatu returns to fly up once more. One bird up, and another Pokemon down thanks to a super effective one-shot. Next in is the third of the Hitmon Pokemon. Xatu dodges a super effective Ice Punch thanks to Fly, and almost knocks out Hitmonchan in one go. But it just barely hangs on and gets off another Ice Punch. But this one lands, and Xatu becomes my first Pokemon to go down to the Elite Four. Slowbro comes in to avenge its Psychic-type friend by tanking a Thunder Punch and finishing off Hitmonchan with a Confusion. Bruno's ace Machamp takes the stage, and I keep Slowbro in for a classic Brawn versus Head Empty matchup. Slowbro starts with Confusion, which looks to be a 3-hit knockout, and a Rock Slide from Machamp seems to be in the same boat. I go for Surf next, and it's still the same story. But before I can go for the knockout, Bruno goes for a Max Potion and fully heals up. Even with the damage from Confusion, there's no way we can get the knockout before it faints us, so I take a page from Bruno's book and use a Hyper Potion to get all of Slowbro's health back. Machamp then gets some damage in with Rock Slide, and Slowbro gets one more Confusion in before fighting through the last Rock Slide and fainting Machamp with Surf. 3 down and 1 to go. And the last Elite Four member is Karen. And not the type of Karen that nobody likes, but like the cool Karen. Her Dark Focus team is led by Umbreon, who I choose to fight with Sudowoodo. It starts off with Sand Attack, which already hurts immensely because I thought Dynamic Punch would be my go-to move. I try Low Kick instead, and it gets off some okay damage, but after a couple, Umbreon is still only right around half health. I really want to end this fight with one shot from Dynamic Punch, even though Sudowoodo is confused and has had its accuracy dropped, but that kind of makes me want to go for it more for some reason, just to see if I can do it. But I miss, and then miss again. Unfortunately, I'm forced to go into Donphan, who takes a critical hit Feint Attack and then a Sand Attack, but is able to land an Earthquake for the knockout. Vileplume comes out, so I switch into Typhlosion and take it out no worse for wear with 2 Flame Wheels thanks to a miss from Stun Spore. Donphan comes back out to face Gengar and, with the help of Gengar's curse, feints it with Earthquake. I swap back into Sudowoodo and heal it up, before taking a Feint Attack and landing a super effective Rock Slide for a 1-hit KO. Last up is Karen's Houndoom. I decide Lantern will be the best option here and lead with a Confuse Ray, but get some crunch damage in return. Houndoom hits itself in confusion and then gets doused in a waterfall. I felt like Karen was probably going to heal up at this point, so I go for a Thunder Wave to slow down its movements and potentially get some paralysis turns. I get neither a confused hit or a paralysis, but instead a ton of crunch damage after my hit from Waterfall. Luckily, the reduced speed came in handy as Lantern finished off the battle with a Waterfall that struck first before Houndoom could end the match itself. Karen follows up the battle with a great take, saying, "Strong Pokemon, weak Pokemon. That is only the selfish perception of people. Truly skilled trainers should try to win with their favorites." With those wise words in mind, we take a walk into the Champions Room and find that Lance has put in the work and earned back the position of champion, and we begin our rematch 3 years in the making. I start with Slowbro, and he leads with Gyarados. I got bigger and better plans for Slowbro, so I switch into Lantern and tank a Surf. Gyarados can't do much else it seems, so it goes for another Surf, but it's all in vain because Lantern hits a critical hit Spark to finish it off with one fell swoop. Out comes what would turn out to be one of 3 Dragonites Lance has in his arsenal, so I switch back into Slowbro. Slowbro dodges a Thunder Wave, as it refuses to be slowed down, and lands an Icy Wind to put Dragonite 1 on half health. Slowbro then dodges a Thunder this time, and lands a second Icy Wind to finish off Dragonite 1 with no damage taken. Then Dragonite 2 comes out, gets outsped, and dropped with a critical hitting Icy Wind. Unbelievable performance from Slowbro so far. No way he could go 3 for 3. But it's chances now, as Dragonite 3 emerges and immediately gets blasted by an Icy Wind from a Quick Claw Slowbro. It sets up a safeguard and goes for an Outrage, which puts Slowbro on half health. Slowbro then misses its next Icy Wind, and I feel like this might be it. It had a good run, but it couldn't quite finish the job. Until it lived on 5 health and shot Dragonite straight out of the sky with one last beautiful Icy Wind. Earning its rest, I swap in Sudowoodo to take on Charizard. After taking a Flamethrower really well, Sudowoodo lands a critical hit Rock Slide and one-shots Charizard. One more Pokemon to go, and Aerodactyl is that last Pokemon. It lands a Rock Slide of its own, which causes Sudowoodo to flinch. Not once, but twice. One final Rock Slide feints my Rock Tree. Lantern then steps up to the plate and eats a Hyper Beam. And at this point, it's smooth sailing, because after an initial waterfall, Aerodactyl needs to recharge, and Lantern lands one final waterfall to solidify us as the Pokemon League champion once again. A new team, a new journey, and now, a new champion of Johto. The Hall of Fame eternalizes the achievement, and that's another one in the books. Or at least it would be the end of the story, if Crystal didn't have one of the best Pokemon post games of all time. After becoming champion, we're given an SS ticket to catch a ride over to Kanto. While back in the Kanto region, we return to all the gyms to try our hand at earning these gym badges a second time, and take advantage of the opportunity to revisit some old friends. We get a workout in and share some adventuring stories with Lieutenant Surge, and are unable to sneak up on Sabrina, who once again knew we were coming thanks to her psychic powers. After a spot of tea with Erica, we talk about how lovely the Johto region is with its rural approach to living alongside nature and Pokemon. We get to meet Janine for the first time, and let her know that her dad is doing just fine as the newest member of the Elite Four. We interrupt Misty because she wasn't really doing anything important, and get some opinions on how we've been raising our Pokemon from the man himself, Brock. After some terrible news about a volcano going off and destroying Cinnabar Island, I'm relieved to see that Blaine is in high spirits and burning brighter than ever in a nearby cave where he set up a makeshift gym to continue his gym operations. And I got nothing but respect for a man who can appreciate a good cave. And finally, I'm reunited with my old rival Gary, who found some success online with his hit podcast and changed his name to Blue, which is more marketable online or something. I don't get it. After beating him in a battle, he tells me that there's some internet chatter about the former champion of the Kanto region who beat the Elite Four after I did, but soon disappeared. He's supposedly super strong, but no one knows where he went. Blue tells me that his name is Red and he's the real deal, even stronger than me, and says that some folks he knows online rumor that he is somewhere on Mount Silver, a mountain range that is off limits and is teeming with strong Pokemon. I go visit with Oak, and he gives me permission to go up to Mount Silver. But before we summit such a technical mountain, we try to get our climbing legs by exploring the smaller Mount Moon, and we run into the one and only Tom Brady. Tom tells me he's been thinking about what he's been missing in his game, and he thinks he knows what it is now. After a quick battle that goes exactly the way you would imagine, Tom admits defeat, but says he won't give up because his Pokemon have his back, and he has theirs. He says that trusting your team is what it takes to become a champion, and he needs to get better at that. So, to become a better team player, he's going to travel to some far-off land where he heard rumors of a sport which is all about teamwork, and he thinks that could be his ticket to improving his skills and lead to him one day becoming the best. It sounds like a bit of a long shot to me, but his determination is admirable, and I have a weird feeling that he might just one day make it big at whatever he sets his mind to. With Tom Brady heading off to his new adventure, I head off to Mount Silver, and with some motivation from Todd, we begin to climb. Professor Oak wasn't kidding when he said that there were some strong Pokemon here. Luckily, they make for perfect training to raise up the team to reach the summit of Mount Silver. At the peak, we find that the rumors are true. There stands Red, arguably the strongest trainer to ever do it. With the nerves tempered and our hat turned backwards, we step forward as our showdown begins. Red starts with a Pikachu at level 81. Oh boy. Hoping that it doesn't have any good coverage moves, I lead with Donphan. Pikachu starts with Charm to lower Donphan's attack, but surprisingly it still one-shots with an Earthquake. Luckily, Pikachu didn't pose much of a threat, despite that intimidating level. Next in is Venusaur, so I switch into Xatu for what should be a really good matchup of a Poison and Grass type against a Flying and Psychic type. Xatu lands a Psychic to take it down to about half health as Venusaur sets up a sunny day. I imagine a Solar Beam is heading my way, so Xatu takes to the sky to avoid the said beam and land a super effective fly, but it doesn't quite finish the job. Venusaur lands a Solar Beam right after, but Xatu tanks it the best it can and lands another Psychic to finish it. 2 down. So far, so good. Out comes Blastoise for Red and Lantern from our side. Blastoise luckily misses a Blizzard and allows Lantern to land Thunder Wave to get the speed advantage. Lantern then lands a Confuse Ray to set up the Parafusion, and Blastoise hits itself in confusion. Lantern lands a Spark, and it looks to be a 3-hit KO. Blastoise gets through to land a Surf, which doesn't do much at all, so it seems it doesn't have any coverage. One more Spark and a Surf from Blastoise, and this matchup is as good as over. Luckily, my team so far has matched up super well against Red's team, which has made up nicely for the massive difference in our team's level. Xatu then comes back out to face Espeon, who I don't really have a good counter for, so the plan is to set up a Confuse Ray and go from there. But that was clearly not what Espeon's plan was, who dropped Xatu with a Psychic. So I send in Slowbro to tank any psychic moves while I use a max revive on Xatu. Espeon sets up a Reflect, and Slowbro misses an Icy Wind, which I was hoping would land a couple times to slow it down, but on the bright side, it tanks a Psychic really well. The next Icy Wind lands, but that was about the last bit of anything Slowbro could get in as 2 more Psychics fainted it. Revitalized, Xatu returns to outspeed Espeon and land a Confuse Ray. But Espeon isn't much phased and continues to land Psychics. Xatu misses Flash, but Espeon hits itself, so that turn was a net positive. Xatu lands its next Flash, and Espeon hits itself again. Not once, but twice. With the momentum finally starting to shift, Xatu flies up, dodges Espeon's move, and almost feints it with Fly. Espeon just hangs in there and is able to feint Xatu. I send Lantern in, but I miscalculated the speed matchup, and Lantern pays the price, getting feinted in one shot. I do what I should have done last turn and send in Typhlosion to quick attack and finally feint Espeon. Snorlax gets sent in next, so I go with my rock type with fighting moves Sudowoodo. Snorlax outspeeds, which is kind of surprising to me, and sets up an Amnesia. Sudowoodo lands a low kick, which does basically nothing. A body slam from Snorlax does much more than what Sudowoodo's low kick does, and paralyzes, but that doesn't stop the sentient tree from landing a dynamic punch, which does a disappointing amount of damage. At least Snorlax is confused. The guaranteed confusion pays off though, as Snorlax hits itself in confusion and a low kick leaves it in the red. Really hoping that Snorlax doesn't heal up, the best case scenario happens and it knocks itself out in confusion, which has come in clutch this battle so far. Bringing up the rear for red is his Charizard, to hopefully put a stop to the underdog story that's being written right now on Mount Silver. I decide to sacrifice Sudowoodo to heal up Slowbro, but to my surprise Sudowoodo tanks a flamethrower super well. I probably should have just went for Rock Slide, but I wasn't sure Sudowoodo would get through the paralysis and not miss its move. Feeling pretty good now, I send in my starter, who takes a wing attack and lands a smokescreen to lower Charizard's accuracy. That turns out to be pointless, as Typhlosion lands a Thunder Punch for some damage, but gets hit with a couple more wing attacks and feints. Slowbro looks ready to finish the job, so I send it in to tank a flamethrower and almost finish it off with Surf. As long as red doesn't heal, the next turn should end it, so Slowbro goes for an Icy Wind to pay homage to the move that has helped me inch closer to my dream of having the fastest Slowbro ever. However, in storybook fashion, Quick Claw activates, and Slowbro outspeeds to land its Icy Wind and defeat the legendary red. He leaves me with some wise words, or lack thereof, and disappears. Now, with the game officially complete, we make our way back home as the undisputed champs of the Kanto and Johto regions. On the return trip, I remember there's a classic Gen 2 activity that I had forgotten about until now, and that is the bug catching contest. Luckily for me, they were holding the contest this day, so for no other reason than for old time's sake, we enter the contest. The rules are pretty simple. You get 20 Park Balls and 20 minutes to catch the best bug-type Pokemon you can find. You're only allowed to bring one Pokemon, and you can only keep one of the bug Pokemon you catch for the actual contest. My game plan was to walk around a bit until I found a rare or final stage bug Pokemon and catch that, and from there maybe try to find a better one, but if I didn't, I still had a decent catch to hang my hat on. The problem turns out to be that the Pokemon here are vastly underleveled compared to Lantern, and I probably should have guessed that and brought a much weaker Pokemon, but we're gonna roll with it for now. This made things immensely more difficult because I would one-shot anything with an attacking move and am forced to rely on paralysis to catch full health Pokemon. An additional problem I found was that this Butterfree that I had already invested too much time in poisoned me, and that's chipping away at Lantern's health at an alarming rate. There's no way to heal it in battle, so after being forced to flee, we find out there's no way to heal outside of battle either, so we're kind of in a hard place right now. Pivoting from the original game plan a bit, I catch a Caterpie, just so I have something to bring to the judges, and continue to walk around just to run out the clock on Lantern's health, when we stumble upon a Scyther. Now this would have been a great catch for the contest, but Lantern's on 17 health and poisoned, and after how the Butterfree fight went, it's just not gonna happen. Until it does, after a single Park Ball. It came down to the wire, but we pulled off the unthinkable, and for that impressive showing, we win the contest. In the greatest comeback in the history of the Johto bug-catching contest, me and Lantern turned the tables in the dying moments for what will surely go down in the history books, and be talked about by bug-catching enthusiasts for years to come. We continue our jaunt back home and stop near Goldenrod to share all the exciting news of our adventure with our good pal Todd. Like any good friend in the Pokemon world, we challenge Todd to a battle to show how much we've both grown since we first met. Unfortunately for Todd, I've grown considerably as a trainer and make quick work of his team. But in battles like this, it's not about how strong your Pokemon are, or whether you win or lose, but about the bonds you form with your companions. Plus, when it comes to spotting a good deal at department stores, nobody can compete with my friend Todd. And with that, my journey in Johto comes to a close. There are plenty more Pokemon adventures to be had out there, but my adventures in the Johto region of Pokemon Crystal will forever be special to me, as the place where it all began.